Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Lost in Space, Season 3, Episode 5. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, we are in the aftermath of the crash. And obviously everyone's split up in their different pairs, so we'll kind of go by the pairings one by one. First and foremost, let's start off with Judy and Maureen. Luckily, they're still stuck in the Jupiter when it crashed, but luckily they're both okay. Complication is though Maureen can't get up from her chair because it's still it's still situated and activated like it's ready to jettison, like it was supposed to, but they got stuck. Well, now as she moves, it's going to explode. But also, like, even if Judy and Maureen tried to leave, even if they, like, cooled it off and gave themselves a couple of seconds window, it's not enough time to escape the blast radius, because shrapnel will be going flying everywhere. So, in that moment, it's like, right, we gotta find another way around this. Well, things get even more complicated on that front because they proceed to be swallowed by a creature that's slowly but surely swallowing. Because at first, like, there's something dripping down, and I was like, what's that? And it's like, oh, cool, it's saliva. So that's interesting. I also like with the Judy and Maureen thing, I think it's a neat little parallel. I mean, I think everyone's pairings are very nice, and they kind of are very impactful in their own regards. But the Maureen and Judy, because it's like, Judy's like, oh, I'm glad to be stuck with you. Don't tell Penny. Don't tell Will. Don't tell your father that she's like, I'm glad to have been stuck with anyone out of you because, like, you're Judy Robinson. You can do anything. But obviously the parallels of, like, right, Maureen, like, us seeing her, as a teenager, like, looking up at the stars, her dreams. Because she talked about that last season about, like, obviously she grew up on a farm, and obviously, like, wanting to reach beyond that. Like, she's always had her eyes up to the sky, up to the stars. But she had to bow out of being an astronaut because she was pregnant with Judy. Like, it kind of got implied that, when I was about to say Russell, I meant, when Grant told him a couple 2 episodes ago about that. So, which I do like that does come back, but we'll get to that in a second. Judy's trying everything she can to, like, her mom is like, right, you're gonna have to, like, feel it out. So, like, oh, if it purrs like a kitten, you're good. It's like, we've never had a kitten. It's like, well, we couldn't. Will was allergic. And it's like, if it's going rumbling like a washing machine, you're going too far. And she's like, we definitely had a washing machine, so you'll be able to tell. Sadly, it didn't work out. So Judy kind of, like, failed at that part, and it's like, right, you can't do it again. They used up all the fuel because it was like a one-shot deal type of thing to make the monster spit them up. And Judy kind of feel like she let her mom down. She's like, I'm sorry, I'm just frustrated because I'm just being in this chair. Which there's a parallel of her mom convinced her to, like, start rocking Judy in a chair to kind of calm her down. So it's just that thing of, like, Maureen being stuck here is just like, she doesn't like being stuck. She likes, because the episode title is actually called Stuck, and there's just layers to it because she was stuck on Earth with Judy, and, she couldn't live her dream because, like, even with Judy as a baby, she still looked up to the stars because it's like, she had to bow out of what she wanted. Because even her mom was like, right, you could use those smarts to kind of help with the harvesting here, but it's like, no, that's not what I want. This is what I wanted. This is what I've wanted for so long, and just having to bow out at it from that. It's just, that's that complicated thing of, like, right, having children, complicated things, but Maureen's still telling Judy, like, no, leave me behind, but Judy's suggesting, like, right, the way, like, a snake will vomit up something if it triggers, like, kind of a vomiting reflex, Judy plans on trying to do that. She's like, if we can get the right 2 chemicals together, we'll cause that. But, obviously that applies just to a snake, so Maureen is like, no, Judy, just, like, go out the back and I just want to know that you're safe. And so Judy's actually taking care of a, like, hurt shoulder, which her mom finds out. It's like, whoa, what's going on? It's like, I hurt my shoulder, whatever. She's like, why didn't you tell me? And it's like, for her, I've always had to be the perfect child. Like, you're like, right, I'm the perfect person you want to be. She's like, I never needed you to be perfect. And she's like, yeah, but then it's like, you've always kind of pushed me for that. It's because Maureen never realized the pressure she put on Judy, because she's like, I just wanted you to reach your full potential. And she's like, like, she's like, I've always strived to be the best. And she's like, I never really knew why. Because at the end of the day, she's always just trying to live up to her mom's expectations. Because Maureen's always had such big expectations out of anyone in particular, Judy. Because on some level, she was passing Judy's, like, her own dream. She was kind of almost forcing that on Judy, because Judy was like, oh, like, because Maureen, when Judy was younger, Maureen was like, oh, Penny said you wanted to be a doctor. She's like, Penny doesn't know what she's talking about. She's only 6. But she's like, oh, you want to be a doctor? That's cool. You could be a doctor in space. Like, she kind of pushed that on her, but she never realized at the time. It's like, right, because she missed out on her dream. She was almost trying to live vicariously through Judy. But this also brings up a really interesting thing that got brought up a couple episodes ago. John pointed out that it's interesting when they were cleaning the kids' rooms, Judy brought, like, all the first place prizes. What did Judy bring? One of her second place trophies, probably the only second place trophy she's ever gotten. And what was Maureen's response? Oh, Judy did that because she just wanted to know that she could do more, that she could do better, So it's like, Maureen didn't even realize the pressure she was putting on her children, in particular Judy, like, and so it's like, yeah, like, if that's kind of supposed to be a symptom of that, like, why Judy always pushes her, because she thought she had to, like, do whatever it takes to live up to her mom's expectations, but now she has a clearer understanding of, like, what caused that. It's like, right, I'm the reason why you had to give up on your dream. And she's like, Maureen just didn't realize, like, oh, like, what, in the entire time, like, what pressure she's been putting on Judy. And now Judy also knows, like, about that, because she never brought that up before. Because I thought, like, Penny would start thinking like that. But, of course, like, Judy would think that more than anything, because Penny came out after her. So it's like, yo, like, I'm the first and foremost reason why. Like, after you had me, then you decided, like, oh, we're going to have, like, you're going to have, like, more of a family. But it's like, I'm the one that kick-started that, But despite everything, Judy's like, I'm not going to leave you behind. You didn't leave me, and I'm not going to leave you. We're going to get out of this together. So, using the box to hide in, like Smith did, but also like Penny and Smith and VJ and that professor did when they were getting sucked out into the vacuum of space. This will protect us from the shrapnel, and your seat ejecting. The explosion from it will, like, trigger that vomit response from this creature. So, luckily, they were able to get in the box in time, and everything was okay. And I love it's actually a really sweet moment. And even Maureen holding Judy, being like, yeah, this is just like the beginning, when it was just us. Kisses her. And Judy's like, right, I gotta go check all the stuff. But her mom's like, no, you just rest. I'm gonna get you a sling from the med bay and, check things out myself. And I'm like, that's really sweet to kind of have it all kind of come full circle in that regard too. So I thought that's why it's like, it's such like I said, each one had its own impactful thing. Other than that, we had John and Penny together, and so they're going to go look for the robot in the engine, and they make their way to the Fortuna, and they find the robot, but he's stuck, so they're trying to find a way to cut him free. I think it's interesting because Penny's like, I love that she's like trying to help him. It's like, right, you were in this very situation when you met Will. I mean, granted, no tree and a whole bunch of fire, and you're not the four-armed scary monster you were. But she's like, how did Will actually help you? He never actually told us that side of the story. And then Robot points to her, and she's like, oh, and she figures it out. Because, John's trying to figure out a way to help, but then, like, he turns to her, who has, like, that sewing cord, and it's like, oh, he's like, John's like, why didn't I think of that? And Penny's like, what is it? And so they start sawing at the thing, interestingly enough. But sadly, like, a bug was crawling on some wires. 2 wires touched, ended up turning on a whole bunch of lights. And it's like, that power is going to, like, point the robots near them. So they immediately were able to shut that down. But Penny did notice some recordings that, like, right, we should probably watch these later. I wasn't paying as much attention to it because I thought that was live security footage. Who knows how long ago that footage was, whether that was supposed to be, like, back when the Fortuna originally got attacked, or whether that's for more recently, like, before all the power, like, completely got shut out, like, maybe the, they had come by nearby, but I'm assuming that's supposed to be back with the Fortuna. So, because they were never able to get all that data beforehand. Plus, there's been one thing after another, so they haven't had time to really check everything with the Fortuna. So now they have those drives and they can watch that whenever they need to. So I think that's fascinating. That's going to probably come back in very important fashion. But later on, well, they circle back to help the robot because now they're on a time limit before like well, I thought was interesting because Penny was like, oh, that sounds like math, knowing exactly how long it's going to take for them to get here, that we've got like a 10 to 15 minute window. It's like usually mom's the one with the math stuff. He's like, well, this is what I used to do for a living in the military, so like it, you know, knowing like how far like an enemy's out and how long it take them to get to you type of thing. So I love that part way through the, like Penny notices her dad's freaking out, so she's like, so I need your help with something. He's like, okay, like VJ and Liam, and he's like, who? It's like, you know VJ, Victor's son. He's like, yeah, right. And Liam, it's like, wait, is this a boyfriend thing? She's like, I mean, we don't really call it that, but yeah. And I love that look on his face the entire time. He's like, I don't want to be having this conversation. And it's like, VJ, he's got a big heart and everything. And then he's like, yeah, that's a very important thing. And she's like, but Liam, he's so strong like that. If I fell off a cliff, he'd grab me. I mean, well, he actually did. He's like, yeah, that's finding that person you trust. So she's trying to like pick between them, and just like I said, you could just see like the awkwardness of like, shouldn't you be having this conversation? Wouldn't it be better to have this conversation with their mom and not me? But then he realizes, he starts laughing. He's like, you're trying to distract me, like playing fish when the Jupiter is crashing. So I guess that was mainly, like we never really got clarification on it, because when we caught up to the Robinsons at the beginning of episode 1, they were already playing it, but they never, I don't know if they ever suggested that was her idea, because her, you know, anytime I get scared, because that's your suggestion, because for him, he always wants to do that for her, to help her get, you know, calm her down. Not unless that was his suggestion to make them all calm. But I thought it seemed like he was implying that was Penny's, but maybe he was implying like, oh, like when, you know, with the flaying fish thing while we're crashing. But regardless, you know, he always wants to be the one to calm her down. But she's like, when she's scared, and he's like, in this situation, you're doing that for me. And she's like, when you're around Dad, I'm never scared. So I was like, oh, that was a really sweet moment between. Once again, just like these really nice family moments, especially like having been separated for over a year. But luckily, they cut the robot free, and so it's like, right, let's get out of here before trouble arises. So that's pretty dope. Then we had Dawn, who's chasing Debbie. I have to clarify that, because a couple episodes ago when he was around the chicken, I was like, oh, is that one with Debbie's babies or something? But it's like, no, it was Debbie itself. Because I was thinking, like, he was saying, like, oh, a father. I didn't realize he considered himself Debbie's father. I thought that was, like, one of Debbie's babies or something. It's like, no, it's Debbie. Of course, these two would, you know, it technically, I mean, it was him and Smith at the beginning, but it was, you know, Debbie was there along the way. So it's neat to see that all kind of play out this way, too, that Debbie's with him, and he had to take the tracker out because that would have admitted power that would have made the robots be able to track them down. So he has to chase after Debbie. He's like, get back here, Debbie. You got to the count of 3. 1, 2, 2.25, 2.5. He lost his boot in the process because of Debbie. But then, like, I'm assuming either it was one of the others or it was Sar himself comes up to Dawn, but he doesn't do anything because he's looking for Will. So he scans Dawn, but I'm like, for what purposes? Like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to replicate Dawn's voice as a means of tracking down Will and tricking him? Or, you know, trying to replicate a human voice? Like, I was wondering for a second, like, could he be like, kind of like the machine from Person of Interest? It finally chose a voice. If you've never seen Person of Interest, I won't like spoil that for you, what voice the machine ended up choosing, because it's very impactful and very important. But I'm wondering if it's doing the same thing. If it's, you know, it's like, right, this way I need to communicate, so I've chosen a human voice to be my voice, so it's going to talk like Don from now on. Or was it, what else could it be scanning from him? Not like, it's like, I don't think you can scan his memories or anything, so what is it trying to get from him? We'll have to wait and see. But it ended up knocking him out, but luckily it left him alone, because it's like, I don't care about you. Well, maybe leaving him alive was on purpose too, because it's like, maybe like scanning him like that was actually putting like maybe they're tracking his heat signature now. Like, oh, I've got records of who you are, so all I have to do is follow you and you'll lead me straight to Will type of thing. Not unless that's where we're going with that. So there's that. But on the other side of things, we have Will and Smith. Obviously, she sees that Will's got the skull. Like, the bag is what he's after, because it's got the skull in it. Because, like, it's part of his plan. Because the plan is to also show them, like, this is your creators. They're gone. You don't have to follow your old program anymore. Plus, he's got all those languages stored away. But when it's all said and done, Smith kept telling him not to do this. Because I love that she puts herself in the middle of it by being like, right, like, what if I get you want to have your showdown with Sar, but what about me? Because even Will was kind of like, what was he saying at one point in time? I forgot, there was something very impactful he was saying early on in the conversation with Smith, because I know later on he's like, do you really think everything's going to be okay the moment you get to Alpha Centauri? Like, she's like, right, I have plans to get far away, when it's all said and done. She knows she won't be able to just be, because she's like, I don't like being around people, but when I get to Alpha Centauri, I'll be in a place that's far on my own. I can be by myself. Like, she's like, that's what, I deserve. That's what your parents deserve. Even your sisters, more or less. But no one more so than you. A place, I guess, to call your own past all of this. So, once again, she makes it about herself, but she also, it's more so to manipulate Will to make him, it's like, right, put your family first before your crazy planet, whatever it is, because what if something happens to the robot, then your family won't be able to get to Alpha Centauri. None of us will be able to. So, she's trying to almost also tell Will, don't be so quick to kind of jump to your death, or sacrifice yourself. You should also be quick to, put your family first, so that should come first and foremost. That was kind of the plan in the first place, but just didn't go that direction. I'm still trying to circle back and remember what exactly was it that he had said to Smith. Smith made some remark and he had some rebuttal to her that I thought was really interesting. I don't remember what it was off the top of my head now. I don't think I'm going to remember, but I can't remember because I thought it was so impactful. I wish I could remember now. But he was reaching for the skull and it's dropped and I was like, oh no! I was like, no! This is part of your plan. But luckily the robot showed up and the celebratory thing of, yeah! Oh, right! I remember now. I finally remember. Jeez, it's funny how things trigger your memory because the robot's there. She's like, you and your robot. And he's like, right. It's my robot when you're upset with him, but any other time you're quick to remind people how close you and the robot were. She's like, we still are. And I'm like, I just thought that was such an interesting conversation. Yeah, it's my robot when things are bad, but when any other chance you want to remind people, no, we're good. It's like her and the robot definitely don't have the same relationship, but the robot's pretty okay with her because she is part of I think the family in general, just like Dawn is. I think they're part of this family that Robot doesn't express it, but I believe, it's kind of, it's there. Because that's what the robot used to kind of convince her not to take the Jupiter, which she managed to sneak aboard regardless anyway. But yeah, luckily everything worked out. So it's like, right, let's go meet up with the others because John and Penny found them. But before they left, Will did pick up that thing and he pulled something out. I'm assuming it's the recording from his message just in case, in case he does still have to say goodbye to him, because his plan is still there. It's just a matter of executing it and getting it all happen. So he still has his final goodbye to his family if need be. I think that's what he pulled from his device. It's smashed up, but he still had the recording, I think. I'm assuming that's what that's supposed to be, but like I said, at the end, we saw Sar and one of the others, and it's that red line being shown again. So once again, what did they do to Don? What did they pull from him? I brought up earlier what I thought, but we'll have to wait and see ultimately what it turns out to be. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.